Bigfoot, Ed. They want me to kill it.
We're gonna kill Bigfoot.
It's not walking on four legs.
I want to see it.
See what?
There is something out there.
What did it look like? Tell me, what did you see, Kusang? Tell me!
I see what men must not see.
Saw it? Yeah, I saw it. Jesus H. Christ, you satisfied?
Get the lights! Get the lights! There's no credible documented cases of a Sasquatch attack.
Shut up about a Sasquatch.
It's okay. There's nothing out here.
Well, as I was whipping out my trusty little paper here, look at this branch. Very interesting. Look how the vine just wraps around it completely. Today, right now, I wanted to bring up a movie that, with a title as odd as this, I could not put it in the Bigfoot reviews. It's a movie from 2018, directed by Robert Krasakowski, starring the one and only Sam Elliott, Aidan Turner, Caitlin Fitzgerald, Larry Miller, and Ron Livingston. Now, this is a movie I heard about years ago, and technically it's not even a horror movie. It has horror elements, some at a few sequences, but for the most part, it's a very decent war movie about just the ramifications of your actions in your youth and what it does when you get old. So, let me introduce you to a really good movie that I highly suggest. 2018's The Man Who Killed Hitler and Then the Bigfoot. The Man Who Killed Hitler and Then the Bigfoot stars Sam Elliott as Calvin Barr, who also played in Hulk, Ghost Rider, Prancer, Tombstone, Roadhouse, and The Ranch. Aidan Turner plays a young Calvin Barr, also from the Hobbit trilogy, The Suspect, and Puldork. Caitlin Fitzgerald plays Maxine, also of Masters of Sex, Unreal, and Secession. Sean Bridgers plays Mr. Gardner, also Mr. Gardner's son, from The Blacklist, Rectify, and Sweet Home Alabama. Ron Livingston plays Flagpin, also of The Conjuring, The Flash, and Band of Brothers. Eller Coltrane plays the Clerk, also from Boyhood, The Circle, and Summer Night. Larry Miller plays Ed Barr, also from Pretty Woman, Mother's Day, and 10 Things I Hate About You. Rizwan Manji plays Maple Leaf, also from Shazam 2, Peacemaker, and Schitt's Creek. Mark Steger plays the Bigfoot, also of Stranger Things, American Horror Story, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, and also Indigenous, which is another really good creature flick I'd like to cover one day. Aubrey Hale plays Rufus, and also Rocco Joffrey, who also plays a proggish Nazi, and also handles the special effects, as well as special effects on RoboCop, La La Land, I Am Legend, and Watchmen. Alton Fitzgerald White plays George, also of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, Bull, and Law & Order. Hugh Holland plays a bum, also from Julia and Life After You. Dean Neistat plays Paxton, also of Thor Love and Thunder, Star Trek Picard, and Fear the Walking Dead. David Armstrong plays Slater, also from Hocus Pocus 2, The Blacklist, and Gotham. Chris Tucci plays Riz, also of Luke Cage, The Equalizer TV series, and The Blacklist. Sally the Dog plays Ralph, and Nikolai Zankov plays the Russian, also from The Manifest, The Americans, and Litvinenko. Ross McCready plays a Nazi guard, Melissa Jalali plays a secretary, Joe Lucas plays Adolf Hitler, John C. Quinlan plays a paperboy, Leslie Trentelang plays Mother, Daniel B. Martin plays a peasant farmer, Julian Mayo plays a peasant boy, Alan Francis Sullivan plays an SS officer, Steve Provisor plays a band leader, Steve Wojtowicz plays a drunk man, Kelly Curran plays Mrs. Gardner, Robert Nunnally plays Little Ed, and Dennis Gray plays Barr's father. Diane Bischoff James plays Barr's mother, Corey Miller plays Maxine's friend, Sally Nutt plays Ed's wife, David Damcooler plays the lead turtle, Roger Curley plays a German boy, Lisa Dodgerton also plays in the movie, Julian Lowenthal plays a Nazi guard, Mark Lund plays a Nazi officer, Dennis Mailer plays a 1940s dancer, Laura Pezza, Harold Rudolph, and Scott Cedarquist play concentration camp prisoners. Carissa Roy plays a Jewish woman. Haley Thomas plays Ed's granddaughter, and Anastasia Zanikov plays Ed's daughter. Gwen McKay plays a concentration camp prisoner, also the Equalizer, Ted, and Zookeeper. Christina Calva plays the sister-in-law, also the Possession of Hannah Grace. Mickey Gilmore plays the Ukrainian police officer, also in The New Mutants and the Possession of Hannah Grace. Rosemary Howard plays a 1940s diner patron, also of John Wick Chapter 3, Glass, and The Punisher. Rob Levesque plays a theater patron, also of Knives Out, Little Women, and The Unholy. Robert Marcella plays a Russian spy, also of Little Women and The Purge election year. And Richard Pajico plays a concentration camp prisoner, also of Equalizer 2 and Ghostbusters 2016. The film was written, produced, and directed by Robert D. Grzykowski, also of The Woman and the short film Elsie Hooper. Other producers include Shaked Berenson, Giles Doust, Catherine Dumonceau, Patrick Ewald, Toby Holmes, Jackie Grzykowski, Louis Lovegrove, Lucky McKee, Katie Page, John Sayles, Deborah Shriver, John Shriver, Thomas Shriver, and Douglas Trumbull. Zach Passero acted as the film's editor, with music by Joe Kramer, cinematography by Alex Vendler, sound design by Jonathan Grieber and Andrew Schmedick, makeup by Darren Boisseau, Mike Azalde, Michael Dinetz, Julia Chateau, Sarah Lawless Emmett, Kevin McTurk, Scott C. Miller, Michelle Nairi, Sherry Rowland. Special and visual effects were handled by Daniel J. Eaton, Mary Elizalde, Mike Elizalde, Rachel Gervig, Adam McLean, Michael Ricci, Richard Urikic, Douglas Trumbull, Mark Sullivan, Travis Pinzanault, John P. Nugent, Evander Major, Jay Lalim, Wendy Gipp, Rocco Joffrey, Tim Fesco, Chris Crawwell, Jeremy Bedell, Kelly Roy, Lisa Lobel, Cheryl Haw, Angela Perry, and Jodie Purdy Quinlan, as well as Spectral Motion Incorporated. Casting was handled by Ann McCarthy and production designed by Brett Hatcher and Dan Warren. The stunt coordinator was Jared Burke, and costume design was handled by Carol Cutchell and Michael Bevins. Joe Goya and Teresa Frankel acted as the production supervisors, with script supervisor by Michael Colombe and art direction by Chantel Birdsong. Additional music was handled by Bruce Brocknick, Sean Fernald, Peter Fuchs, Andy Kite, David Lowe, Martin Roller, Paul Talkington, Johannes Vogel, and Darren Winnicott, and props by Josh Hargrove. Production and distribution for the film was handled by Eagle Films, RLJE Films, Epic Pictures Releasing Group, Makeshift LLC, and MMXV3 Title Media. The Man Who Killed Hitler and Then the Bigfoot had a release date of August 10, 2018 at the US Plaza Classic Film Festival in El Paso, Texas. It also premiered at Fright Fest London August 26, 2018, the Sitges Film Festival in Spain at October 12, 2018, and the Night Vision International Film Festival April 11, 2019. It had a DVD release date of April 2, 2019 at 1 hour and 38 minutes with a budget unknown and a box office approximately of $3,822. The current rating and reception of the film is mixed to positive, with a 5.7 out of 10 on IMDb, a 75% on Rotten Tomatoes, 2 stars from Roger Ebert, and a Metascore of 51. Filming locations include Lenox, Gill, Montauk, Lee, and Turner Falls counties in Massachusetts in the year 2017 from August to September. The film also has a few nominations, having the Hawaii Film Critics Society 2020 Award nominee for Most Overlooked Film and Best New Filmmaker to Robert D. Grzykowski, the International Film Critics Award 2020 IFMCA nominee for Best Original Score for an Action-Adventure Thriller film to Joe Kramer, an Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films Saturn Award nominee for Best Independent Film, Strasbourg European Fantastic Film Festival 2018 nominee for Crossovers Prize to Robert Grzykowski, and the Nevada City Film Festival 2018 Jury Award winner for Heart of Gold for Excellence in Storytelling to Robert D. Grzykowski. The film opens to our protagonist Calvin Barr, played by Sam Elliott, at a bar. As he stares at his reflection, we flash back to Nazi Germany, where a young Barr, played by Aidan Turner, infiltrates a Nazi compound and is about to assassinate Adolf Hitler, played by Joe Lucas, before the flashback ends. After talking to the barkeep George, played by Alton Fitzgerald White, and giving a handout to a beggar, Bragg is ambushed by some thugs who take his keys and wallet. He asks for a small picture of a woman back, but one of the thugs burns it with a cigarette, so Calvin retaliates and takes them all out one by one before leaving. The next day, Barr stares at his reflection again, and we see his younger self meeting with a group of Russians, the leader of which, played by Nikolai Zankov, gives Barr a superstitious gypsy shave while inquiring about his motives. The Russian explains that if he shaves him and succeeds and does not cut him, Barr will fail his mission and die. However, if he shaves and cuts him accidentally, Barr will succeed. He also cannot cut him intentionally or they both will die and be cursed. The Russian ends up giving Barr a complete shave, foretelling that Barr will fail, but surprisingly the man turns around and intentionally cuts Barr in the ear, damning them both with a gypsy curse. But promises that Barr will succeed with his mission and agrees to show him the way, but not before giving an ominous warning that they may meet again. Back in the present, Barr looks at a small wooden box before pushing it back underneath his bed. And while on a walk with his dog Ralph, Barr looks in an old store that used to be a hat shop where he worked at, and remembers the one day when a young woman named Maxine, played by Caitlin Fitzgerald, walked in. Barr then returns a winning lottery ticket he found on the ground to a store clerk after he refuses to collect the money that doesn't belong to him. He then heads to a barbershop owned by his younger brother Ed Barr, played by Larry Miller. Calvin confides in Ed that he's starting to feel tired at his old age and the weight of living with regrettable actions in his life. We then shift back to younger Barr, where he leaves the company of the Russians after being given a German Shepherd by some peasants. Now in Nazi attire, he makes his way across Germany to a compound where the prologue begins. After giving Hitler an envelope with an Uncle Sam We Want You pamphlet, Barr shoots him once and then again in the head, killing the dictator. However, distraught with his actions, he hastily leaves. Later, after Calvin tries to remove an annoying pebble from his shoe, he has another flashback to a date with Maxine, who is a local school teacher. After an awkward encounter with the parents of one of her students, Calvin and Maxine dance after he fails to propose. Later, after looking at the wooden box again, Calvin hears a knock at the door. He answers and is greeted by FBI agents Maple Leaf, played by Wiswan Manji, and Flagpin, played by Ron Livingston. He invites them in for coffee, and Flagpin reveals he's heard many stories about Barr's service from his grandfather, but Barr brushes him off. Getting down to business, they explain that they are there in regards to the many recent killings in Canada, written off as the work of a serial killer, but reveal that along with the killings and a string of dead or deceased animals, the culprit is no other than the legendary Bigfoot, and that it is carrying a deadly plague that could kill all of humanity. They also reveal that Barr is one of the very few people to be immune to the virus and is uniquely qualified to carry out the mission to kill the hastily moving beast before mushroom bombs are deployed as a last resort. Barr becomes annoyed and refutes the notion that he's a hero. He admits to killing Hitler, but with cover-ups on both sides and Hitler's ideology living past his death, he believes that, in the end, it wasn't worth killing him or the supposed legend he was to Flagpin. He tells them no, and the agents leave. Calvin then seeks out Ed's advice, and Ed takes the news of a plague-carrying Bigfoot surprisingly seriously, even to Calvin's surprise. But this is because Ed knows that Calvin is no liar. Calvin explains that he doesn't want to kill anymore, but Ed consoles him and reminds him that he wouldn't be asking for his opinion if he wasn't already sure of what he was going to do. So Calvin leaves Ralph with Ed and rendezvous with Flagpin and Maple Leaf. After arriving at the quarantine zone for a mission briefing and to get his gear, Barr gathers his bearings and heads beyond a wall of controlled fire. We then cut to Barr, who has found the creature, which looks a lot more like a hairy golem, and delivers a headshot. However, this doesn't kill the thing, and Barr pursues the running beast through the forest and nearly falls off a cliff, injuring his hand. After throwing his radio away, Barr follows the trail, coming across a dead moose and deceased elk along the way, as well as finding some dung left behind by the creature, and determines that it's a vegetarian. Later, he sets camp and is visited by an owl, and while trying to rest, pulls a small metallic dinosaur from his pocket that Ed gave him before he was shipped off. As he tries to sleep, he thinks back to Maxine, who wrote to him all the time and patiently awaited for his return home. But with another teaching job and an ailing mother, she had to move away. After finally coming home from war, an emotional Barr collects all of Maxine's letters and throws them away. The next day, an exhausted Barr finds the injured and dying Bigfoot on a cliffside. He breaks down for a moment and begins to set fire around the creature, promising they won't keep its body. However, it springs back to life and runs away. Barr gives chase but gets ambushed and the two duke it out, with the beast nearly choking out Barr. Barr stabs it several times, resulting in the nasty thing vomiting in Barr's face, as well as biting off his ear. The same ear that the Russian had cut earlier in the film. However, you'll notice in the next scene over that the ear is actually still there, so there's a little editing goof there. The Bigfoot then drags itself away, and Barr stumbles to his feet. He says he's sorry and that is not what he wanted, before shooting the Bigfoot dead and collapsing on the ground. Back in town, we see Ed giving a eulogy at Calvin's funeral. Here, we learn that Maxine had died young, which explains why he threw her letters away. feeling the guilt of not being able to be with her, as well as him wanting his last memory of her to be happy, just as Maxine refused to see Calvin off to the station, so her last memory could be happy as well. Also, why is Egon Spengler here? Sometime later, Calvin reappears wounded but alive. And honestly, like, how much time has passed since then? It's like he took a little mini vacay in the woods, wild man style. He took a page out of Bigfoot's handbook, because apparently there's enough time for him to be presumed dead, and everyone in town have a funeral for him. So, in the end, I don't really see the point of the funeral other than a MacGuffin for what happens later. It doesn't really make a total amount of sense, but it's a good movie so far, so let's just roll with it. And keeps his promise to shocked Ed to go fishing, and Ed tells Calvin that he buried his uniform and medals in his grave, which makes Calvin feel relieved. Ed invites Calvin to see his granddaughters play, and Calvin returns the small metallic dinosaur toy that Ed had given to him before he went into the service, and asks Ed about the wooden box, to which Ed admits that it was buried along with the uniform and the medals. Later, Calvin dreams about the last time he saw Maxine, which was a late night walk the day before he left for the army, and again missed his last chance to propose. He then wakes up and goes to his gravesite with Ralph in tow and digs up the casket, retrieving the wooden box but still being unable to open it. This possibly being an allegory for his continued healing. He then takes the box and heads home. Along the way, he finally picks out the pebble in his shoe, seemingly having a huge weight lifted off of his shoulders, and the movie ends. And in the end, the movie only has 3 deaths. Well, I guess technically 4 if you count the moose, but Maxine, Hitler, and the Bigfoot itself. So, not really much of a Bigfoot horror movie, but we'll talk about it later on. It's a movie called The Man Who Killed Hitler and then the Bigfoot. I just really wanted to cover this thing, okay? Now, this movie had a ton of documentation, the audio commentary, almost several making of featurettes. There was a lot for me to gather to show how this film was made. After making the Elsie Hooper short film based on his noir serial, director Robert Krasakowski decided to make his first feature film based on his script for The Man Who Killed Hitler. However, seeing as the story could be too short, he decided to add Bigfoot to the script to show an allegory for the main character's adversaries, with Hitler carrying a plague of horrific ideals, while the monstrous Bigfoot would carry an actual plague, forcing Calvin Barr back into service. Rob passed the script to many seeking opinions. Many who would become cast and crew praised the story, with Ron Livingston calling it similar to the story of Beowulf, and Rizwan Manji thinking it was actually 2 films.
People would say maybe we should change the title, maybe it should be something else, but no one would ever propose anything. And here we are, and the title is The Man Who Killed Hitler and then the Bigfoot, because I never thought of a better one, and nobody else did either.
I mean, when you look at the title of this thing, The Man Who Killed Hitler and then the Bigfoot. Pretty absurd, but it's so absurd that if people are going to say, wow, they're either going to say, I don't want to see that piece of shit, or they're going to say, I can't wait to see this movie.
Just hearing the title is terrific. That may be the greatest title in the history of show business. I don't know how you beat that title.
Actually, the way they said it was, hey, we have an offer for you for The Man Who Killed Hitler and then the Bigfoot. And I thought it was 2 separate movies. So I was like, oh my God, I got 2 offers in one day. Thank you for telling me. I thought it was 2 separate movies.
Doug Trumbull, who supervised visual effects like the airplanes on the film, who himself is famous for his work on Back to the Future: The Ride, Blade Runner, Star Trek the Movie, and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and 2-time Academy Award winner, called the story audacious and risky. Trumbull agreed to work on the film after watching the Elsie Hooper short film. Rob was also able to raise 1/4 of the budget a year and a half before production. John Sayles, who helped produce the Elsie Hooper short film for Rob, was also sold on the story and helped him out to get a lot of the project off the ground, and production designer Dan Warren helped pull the production team together. After the movie, he would go on to work in an LA art department for major movies. For his first film, Rob wanted to keep the movie under 100 minutes. The film was shot in September for 25 days in Lenox and Rob's hometown of Turner Falls, Massachusetts. Many places like the Shea Theater and a gemstone store, which was converted into a 1940s hat shop owned by one of Rob's old classmates, J. Roe Bergs, showed up in the movie, as well as an AV store where Rob and his childhood friends would rent video games. And Rob's own house in Turner Falls is Calvin Barr's house in the movie, which was a stressful situation to say the least. Venford Hall Mansion in Lenox, Massachusetts, where The Cider House Rules was filmed, was turned into Hitler's Nazi fortress. Andrew Schmedick provided all sorts of detailed sounds to the movie, everything from China chattering, leather squeaks, German speech for the background, and many more. As well, Brett Hatch did wonders with production design on a small budget. Josh Hargrove provided many of the film's props, including guns, knives, etc., even Ed's dinosaur toy he gives to Calvin. The makeshift gun Calvin uses in the film consists of a pen, a flask, a lighter, a dog leash handle, and a few other parts. Assistant director Elaine Gibson worked very hard with Rob to keep things on schedule for the 25-day, 5 days a week time frame. It wasn't just Rob's home that made a big appearance in the movie. Many locals would play in the background and extras, all excited to support the film. Rob's friends and family were also very helpful, both with filming and acting. Rob's sister Corey Miller plays Maxine's friend. The peasant is played by his cousin Dan Martin, who is also an actor. Rob's uncle Dennis Gray plays Calvin's father, who funny enough looks a lot like Sam Elliott. Rob's father also helped, even pulling the boxcar scene in the movie through farmland. And Rob's brother Chris Krasakowski got together a lot of air-authentic cars to be parked around. Joe Lucas, the father of two of Rob's close friends, was sort of a fan cast by Rob, who would jokingly say, "You'll play Hitler in my future film." Lucas did agree to play the dictator, but was not a fan of looking like him, and neither was his wife. So much so that he considered not even being credited. Nonetheless, Lucas took the role seriously and studied his lines in German off Google. However, Rob decided that it would feel better that Barr and Hitler never spoke. It wasn't just hard for Lucas to play Hitler. Almost everyone on set felt the weight of filming and portraying Nazis and Jewish captives. When it came down to costume design, Carol Cutchell and Mark Bevins handled the 40s and 80s attire and even based the clothes of the muggers on film characters like the thug from Terminator, Johnny Depp from 21 Jump Street, and John Cusack from Say Anything. Carol also gifted Sam Elliott some vintage glasses worn by her husband at their wedding, which Elliott had fitted with his own prescription to use. Different lighting styles were used to contrast Barr's life from the 40s to the 80s, the 40s being brighter and more vibrant while the 80s being muted and dull. Richard Urikik supervised the quarantine zone scene, which was filmed at an indoor action, which is an indoor sports arena. Visual effects artist Rocco Joffrey filmed practical fire and actual wildfire scenes for the movie, and the scene where Barr finds a footprint in the field is where Rob actually got married, and he made the footprint himself. Rob created a lot of concept art for the movie and had a very different idea for his Bigfoot, this one being very sickly and bug-eyed, with it being portrayed as a very lonely and possibly the last of its kind. So he went to Spectrum Motion and Mike Gazalde, who also created the Bigfoot suit for Eduardo Sanchez's found film Exists, 5 years before. He wanted his Bigfoot to be portrayed in a suit akin to the Universal monster films. This design was inspired by Bernie Wrightson's Frankenstein, along with some Gollum and a little of John Gardner's interpretation of Grundle from the story of Beowulf. Mark Steger got the role for the Bigfoot, which proved to be a challenge. The oversized cloudy eyes would often fog up, so he had to be led around the set. The fight between Calvin and the Beast took a day to shoot, and Rob had always referred to it as the two creatures on their last legs. And in a small goof up, when the creature bites Barr's ear off, you still see it attached a few seconds later. And perhaps the hardest scene for Sam Elliott to shoot was the scene where the Bigfoot vomits onto Barr. The concoction was a nauseating mix of pea soup and orange juice. Several matte paintings created by Myra Direwolf, Rocco Joffrey, and Mark Sullivan show up all around the film, and along with other details like the toy dinosaur, the box, and the pebble, are meant to be sentimental open-air teases to the audience of Barr's journey. As a little bit of drama on set, while filming in town, a young woman had to be edited out after she tried to take pictures of Sam Elliott. Casting director Ann McCarthy was enamored by Rob's concept art. Seeing a striking resemblance to Sam Elliott, she reached out to his people, and after Elliott spent an hour talking to Rob 8 months prior to shooting, he agreed and the film got very lucky. In an interview, Sam explains that as old as he is with his career, he just wanted to make good films no matter how large or small the budget, and felt the script Rodhead wrote had a level of human decency lacking in these current times. He also felt the character reminded him of his father, and although he was exhausted fresh off the Lady Gaga Bradley Cooper film A Star is Born, he was still adamant to play the role. Sam did almost all of his own stunts, and those that had to step in would be called Scam Elliott. Sam's wife Catherine Ross would even talk to director Rob through Sam's phone to make sure he'd be careful. And in another funny tidbit, the owl handler kept throwing frozen mice at Sam to keep the owl happy. Sam, Ron, and Rizwan studied their lines meticulously for the dining room scene, and as everyone could attest, Sam took the air out of the room with his delivery. Ron even improved the line, "Stroke of luck it hasn't hit the birds," to help the plot hole of birds carrying the plague elsewhere. During the mugging scene, they had to make the knife Calvin uses digital after he proved to have a dead-on aim throwing the pipe. And Livingston also had to do a quick voiceover in a closet when it was decided that Flagpin would call Barr on the radio. After being unable to find the right American actor, Rob cast Aidan Turner after seeing his role in Poldork. Aidan, an Irish actor whose biggest role playing Killy in Peter Jackson's The Hobbit trilogy, was chosen to play a young Calvin Barr. Rob noting his similar facial expressions and movements to Sam. Rob even allowed Sam and Aiden to spend a weekend together to help build an understanding of Calvin's character. Aiden studied hard to portray Sam accurately and grew a full beard for the shoot, which wasn't easy since the knife in the movie was very dull, so they had to work around the shave halfway, then finish it with an electric razor. Speaking of the bad omen or gypsy curse in the film, this was completely made up by Rob, and the meeting itself underwent many iterations before the final cut. Caitlin Fitzgerald was one of over 500 actresses to audition for the role of Maxine. She loved the story as she felt Maxine's character reminded her a lot of her grandmother, who would write letters to her grandfather when he went to war. And although director Rob Krzyzewski succeeded in getting the perfect Maxine for the film, little did he know that he was actually playing Cupid. Aiden and Caitlin fell in love on set and started dating shortly after. Then in 2020, the two would get married and shortly after welcome their first child. Character actor and comedian Larry Miller was a bit of a last-minute casting. Rob wanted an alternate love story focusing on the two brothers and felt Larry's comedic background pitted against Sam's stoic acting persona offered a nice contrast. Rob's wife was also a big fan, and Larry made good use of his time on set, keeping everyone laughing. Also, before this movie, Larry had never fished. Alton Fitzgerald White played a small role as George the barkeeper. He recently played another small role in Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, but is most well known for playing Mufasa over 5,000 times on Broadway. Sean Bridgers plays both father and son Mr. Gardner in the 40s, and his son mentioned in the same scene later in 1987. When he played the son, all he did was shave his beard and keep the jerk demeanor. Executive producer Louis Lovegrove lent her dog Sally to play Ralph in the movie, who was always ready to steal the scene after a cheese biscuit. I also forgot to mention that the dog Silas here actually has an IMDb and had to add him here after Sally. And almost the entire town seemed to be in the credits. Musician Joe Kramer first got acquainted to Rob Krzyzewski after doing the score for his Elsie Hooper short film. He was pitched the name and agreed after reading 20 pages of the script. The two decided to go for an 80s Spielbergian Amblin score in the vein of Bernard Herrmann, David Shire, Jerry Goldsmith, and John Williams. At one point, the score had to be given a darker tone so it wouldn't stand out like a Hallmark movie. The film was being cut in El Paso, while in LA, Kramer was finishing the score with a European orchestra over the internet. Further sound was edited on Skywalker Ranch. Further deleted scenes include Calvin lets a little girl pet Ralph in town. While hunting the Bigfoot, Calvin comes across a deceased and dying bear. An extended scene of Barr fixing his finger. After killing Hitler, Calvin has a grief-stricken panic attack on a train. There's an extended scene of Calvin returning home after killing the Bigfoot, and he attends Ed's granddaughter's school play while the townsfolk grapple with his miraculous return. Calvin tells Maxine a story of a kid who wrote a curse word on his leg cast as a kid, and the final one being Calvin returns the German Shepherd to the peasants. All in all, this is a really good movie. I really enjoyed it. As soon as I heard the name, I was like, I gotta watch this movie, I gotta cover it. Even if it's not a Bigfoot horror movie, I need to cover this movie. Which it has just enough of Bigfoot horror, I think, to warrant it. I mean, it's called The Man Who Killed Hitler and Then the Bigfoot. Even if the Bigfoot part is maybe 15 to 20 minutes. Also, I mean, everyone heard of this movie from that Bill Burr joke.
Cowboy shit. By the way, there's a movie out called The Man Who Killed Hitler and Then the Bigfoot, starring Sam Elliott. All right? If you don't fucking immediately try and find out how you can watch that movie, you are no friend of mine. It's about a guy, you know, the character, he's the guy that found Hitler and killed him in World War II, and now they're pulling him out of retirement because the Bigfoot, not Bigfoot, the Bigfoot, just like I'm watching The Boxing. All right? He has to go to Canada and kill the Bigfoot because evidently Bigfoot is walking around carrying some sort of plague that could wipe out human beings. It's like an ape fucked Bill Walton, as far as I can tell. All right, if I was writing that screenplay, okay, Bigfoot having that fucking, you know, carrying the plague, in the end you would find out that it was all bullshit. Where it was walking around, there was a lot of oil underneath the land where it was walking around. So the government then demonized Bigfoot and said that it could take down this entire first world nation because it's walking around with with scarlet fever. First of all, nobody's ever seen Bigfoot. They don't know where the fucking thing is. There's never really been a good picture of the guy thing, yet somehow they know it has the fucking plague. All I know is Sam Elliott's in it, and I'm going to fucking watch that movie. Is it in theaters? You know something? Can you fucking... I still can't believe Aquaman made all that money.
So let's talk about the monster first off. It's such a different design for a Bigfoot. It's small, it has big feet, got these big cloudy buggy eyes, it just looks creepy. It's very Gollum, very Smeagol. Like, you can almost picture it saying, "My precious, my precious." You can almost just picture it saying that. And it's so different. Also off the concept art, it looks a lot bigger in like the concept art. I feel like it works out. Honestly, in a way, the hunting the Bigfoot scene almost reminds me of the hunting the Bigfoot mission in a Red Dead Redemption, Walking Dead, or Living Nightmare, or whatever it's called. That when you hunt the Bigfoot, the last remaining Bigfoot and whatnot. And I just think it works really well, especially that gnarly puke scene. Like, I can just imagine. I remember watching the making of featurette, and he was just talking about how foul it smelled, the pea soup and the orange juice. And even in the film, it just looks nasty. Like, it does not look like he's acting at all. This vomit looks foul. All in all, really decent looking creature, and very different compared to all the other ones on this list. Some of which are just very copy and paste in a way, but all in all, very decent monster. And it's really cool that it came from the same people that are going to be who did the Bigfoot that's going to be in the next Overdue review coming after this. Overall, the characters, really enjoyed all the characters. Aidan Turner, I think, did a good job. Joe Lucas, I think he did a good job as Hitler, non-speaking role. And Ron wasn't lying when he said he looked like him. I don't know. If someone told me I look like Adolf Hitler, I think I'd be kind of pissed off. But, I mean, in this case, it was kind of valid. Caitlin Fitzgerald, she did a pretty decent job as well. Most of them, they kind of do a good job with the little bit of time that they have on screen. Aidan Turner, not really doing a whole lot of talking except for the scenes with Maxine. Larry Miller was just a joy to watch on the movie. He just always was very uplifting compared to Calvin's like stoicism, which really worked with how the director Krzyzewski paired them like that. And Sam Elliott, man, I mean, Sam Elliott's just one of those great iconic actors. Got that deep voice. It's the Bigfoot head. Yeah, all in all, he does such a great job with the concept, because you think, okay, no one's feeling bad about killing Hitler. No one feels bad about that at all. No one feels bad that Adolf Hitler, no one feels bad, or moved to Argentina. That we kind of care about, because then he would have escaped, if that ends up being true. But he does a really good job showing that, he did probably one of the most heroic things in history, which was killing the worst dictator in history. I don't know. Stalin might be up there as well, and the other. But anyway, I mean, killing such an evil man, but still feeling guilty about it. And Aidan and Sam both carry this idea amazingly. Like, the idea that he actually feels guilty about this. Like, they also kind of wonder if he was trained for this specific job. How did he get this far without, like, some kind of bloodlust? Kind of makes you think about what happened to him with the training and whatnot prior. But all in all, Aidan and Sam just do a wonderful, wonderful job. Also, just showing the kind of the depression he has in his old age, all of the regret, just all the, like missing out on Maxine, never proposing to her, not being with her, all of that. And even getting mad when it's brought up that of his, is like his service, which kind of happens with some veterans that you meet. They don't want to be noted as heroes. Some of them just don't want to be noted as that. They just want to be, you went overseas, you did your service, and you're done. And that's about it. And it's kind of like what Barr has in his case. All in all, in terms of how the film looks, the film is beautifully shot. And for being filmed in Massachusetts, you really get like such a diversity in the feel of the movie. Like, you know, with some of it being in Germany, some of it being, you know, in Turner Falls. It's really it really just forebodes, or it really just gets with me how they were able to it really just gets to me to show how diverse they were able to make this movie, being set in pretty much just one location. That really blew my mind. And all of the just little details, like how the gun was made, was all fascinating to watch. How all of the makers of the film, the producers, the musicians, all these people came together to make this really nice little film. I just really enjoyed watching that. And on a serious note, yeah, I've watched this movie maybe 3 times, and I really enjoyed it. It's just a nice little movie to sit down and watch, even though it's kind of corny at some points. And I mean, even the idea of the name, The Man Who Killed Hitler and then the Bigfoot, is such an outlandish name, but in terms of how the movie is made, it works. Like, the script just rocks for this movie. The acting, everything just works out. It's just a really nice little movie, even outside of being, you know, barely a Bigfoot movie. In all reality, it's barely a Bigfoot movie. Bigfoot's only in it for like 20 minutes, or the hunt for the Bigfoot is only in there for like 15-20 minutes. But all in all, I just really enjoy this movie. It's just a really fun watch. But it's not like, in terms of horror, it's got to be very low on the list, because it's not really a Bigfoot horror movie. There's some fights with Bigfoot, but it's not really a horror movie. It's not like Big Legend. It's not like Monstrous. It's not like some of the other films on the list. But it's all in all a very enjoyable film. And I think Sam Elliott and Ron Livingston Ron D. Krzyzewski did a fantastic job of bringing this movie to life. And all in all, what I enjoy about this movie is it's just that it's fun. It's nice, and it makes you think about some things. Like, who would really feel bad about killing Hitler was one of those ideas that I kind of took for granted, and seeing that executed on film really worked with me. I really liked that. But all in all, so enjoyable. As a film, I want to give it an 8 out of 10. Just a very well-made little movie. Even though it's, in terms of, say, Bigfoot horror movie, it would also be ranked very low, because that's so few and far between, you know. But it is an enjoyable movie. Had a great time watching it. Can't wait to show some of my family the movie. All in all, just really fun. So thanks, guys, for watching. Stay tuned for more videos. Also, watch that Bill Burr joke, that little it's on YouTube. You can watch it. I thought that was funny. It was one of my first introductions to this movie, was that Bill Burr joke, and it's pretty funny. Like, yeah, the man who killed Hitler and then the Bigfoot. It sells the whole premise. But anyway, thanks, guys, for watching. Stay tuned for more videos. Happy Halloween, and stay tuned for the next Bigfoot Overdue review series. Bigfoot Overdue review show. And stay tuned for the next Overdue review of the next movie. So, thanks, guys, for watching. Let's hit the 10,000 subscriber mark. And, oh yeah, I already saw that.
So there it is. And that's it.